Hey guys, it's Chris from PaintballFitness.com. Today I want to talk about 3 different books that will serve as a solid foundation to help you build your library of resources. It's always good to have stuff on hand that you can refer back to, even if you have a trainer. Because the more you know is really never a bad thing. First one is actually an ebook, but it's so useful and you can be referring back to it so often, it's totally worth printing out and throwing in a $2 binder so you always have a hard copy. It's From the Ground Up by Dan John. Dan is a coach and a teacher. He's been that for 30-something years. He has a very strong background in Olympic weightlifting and track and field events, so he really knows how to build a successful athlete. More importantly, he also knows how to get his point across. Everything he writes is very easy to understand. It's very conversational. And the moral or the lesson he's trying to teach in his writing always comes across very clearly. From the Ground Up is a very solid beginner's book because it's, from his Olympic weightlifting background, he really teaches and explains how to squat and how to clean and snatch and, do overhead press, and they're very foundational moves, very, very useful. There's a couple of different programs in here to work on. He touches on nutrition, he touches on recovery methods. Really, it's nothing but useful tidbits crammed together in a couple hundred pages. So it's a very solid resource, all around. The next book is actually came out a couple of years ago. It's Starting Strength, Basic Barbell Training by Mark Rippetoe and Lon Kilgore. Starting Strength has been, across the fitness industry, really been getting solid reviews as a very complete introduction to basic barbell training, like the subtitle is. He very explicitly and clearly describes the technical breakdown of back squat, and overhead press, and bench press, and deadlift, and clean. So those 5 exercises are really broken down and explained how to do them very easily to understand. The Starting Strength program he talks about is a very basic, very bare bones, 3-day-a-week program where you squat every day and you do 2 other exercises. And again, for a beginner, for somebody just getting into strength training, it's it's a very solid routine. But really the highlight, whether you're a beginner or you're advanced, the most useful aspect of this is the technical breakdown of those basic lifts. The last book we're going to cover that's really essential is not training related at all. It's written by a New York Times journalist. It's Food Rules and Eater's Manual by Michael Pollan. It does not talk about counting calories, does not talk about grams of proteins or carbs or whatever. Pollan approaches his what he calls nutritionism. It's a more healthful, more wholesome style of eating based on what he calls his 7 magic words, which are eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That's kind of the core of where he's coming from. Food Rules is a solid resource because it's 60-something tips. There are 1 or 2 sentences each one explained, very simply, very easy to understand. And everything he talks about in Food Rules is actually a condensed version of his previous book, In Defense of Food, where in Defense of Food, he gets much more deep into the whys and the hows and the whats, of what he's talking about and explains it a lot more clearly. Food Rules is my go-to one because it's much more simply put. It's much easier for anybody to read. Like I said, it's really almost like bullet points. And to get us, basically the kind of stuff he's talking about is to get away from highly processed foods, get back into more, preferably organic, more healthful eating. Like I said, real food as opposed to processed stuff. For example, something that one of his tips would be avoid food products containing ingredients a 3rd grader could not pronounce. So if you if you were only to do that tip, you would check your ingredients in whatever you have in the cabinet now, and that would rule out monosodium glutamate. What exactly? Monosodium glutamate, MSG. A lot of stuff that's tricky to pronounce apparently. Is going to be an indicator of a more highly processed food. Another laundry's done. Another tip, as a sample, would be don't eat breakfast cereals that change the color of the milk. At first glance, you're kind of thinking, what the hell does that mean? But if you break it down and think about it for a minute, that's a dog. Any cereals like your Fruity Pebbles and your Cocoa Puffs and, all the really delicious ones are going to be more highly processed. They're going to be higher in sugar and less in, beneficial nutrients. So that's, it's a concept, it's a style of eating rather than like a particular diet plan. So really between the three of these, you have a more wholesome, healthful style of eating. You have two books that really break down the basics of strength training in the most basic exercises. Break down the power lifts and the Olympic lifts, and those are always good, tools to have in your toolbox. And check them out. Let me know what you think. I'm going to put links in the information section here so you can, look them up for yourself. And yeah, check them out. Let me know what you think about them. And just remember that, paintball is not a hobby. It's a sport, so train like an athlete.